So as I was saying, good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I am your minister here, the Reverend John Cullinan. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are at this moment here in the sanctuary or watching at home, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome into this community. I want to extend a special welcome today to any visitors or first-time guests we have here among us. I would love to meet you after the service and answer any questions you might have about our community here. I'll take my cup of coffee in the fellowship hall, and I honestly swear I'm going to try to make it to the grand piano this week so you can find me easily enough. You are all welcome to join us after the service for coffee and conversation in the fellowship hall. And now, please take a second to feel yourself grounded. Feel the weight of the earth drawing you down into the floor, your feet firmly there. Breathe in deeply and breathe out. And let us begin. Let us seek the quiet and the calm. Let us lay aside our loud calling. Let us lay aside our struggle. Speak softly. Let us listen to the melodies that recall other proportions. Our moments tarry not with us. Let us then seek the dimension that endures, beyond all nowness and here-ness, beyond all requirement and particularity. Let us speak softly, that we may hear. Let us enter into this quiet. Come, let us worship together on this beautiful morning. Would you all please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 1028. Friends, please remain standing for our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. Please be seated. For all our joys, all our sorrows, whether we share them aloud with one another or we hold them close and quietly in our hearts, let us be with one another in a moment of silence. Eternal and beloved, gracious source of all life and all love, we come together this morning grateful for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to ourselves, to each other, to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. God of many names and of no names, come unto us this morning, for we know not what to do about the epidemic of gun violence, of mass shootings, of thoughtless divisions. We know not what to do for all those who are suffering. Sing in our hearts all the stirrings of compassion, compassion for the oppressed, for those who are scared and hurting, compassion for those who are sick and in pain. Blow in the wind, rise in the seas. May we listen to the stirrings of our earth and together protect our beautiful planet that holds and nourishes us. Move in our hands so that we may give life the shape of justice, that all may experience equity, freedom, and dignity. Roots hold us close so we may feel a connection to this earth and to one another, interconnected in all. Spirit of life, come to us so we may be whole and live lives of value and purpose. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. I invite the young and the young at heart to come and join me here at the front of the sanctuary. So today I'm going to be talking about some scary things. So I thought it might be good for us to talk about things that frighten us and how we might handle them, and what happens when we don't handle it well. I'm going to show you one of the things that frightens me most in the world. This is a blank piece of paper. Every time I see one, I get a little bit of an adrenaline rush and a little scared, because I know I have to write something. Something is going to have to be on this paper by the end of an hour or 2 hours. But that's a lot of space to fill. And when I think about all that space to fill, I get a little scared. And when I get scared, and I don't know about you, I also get angry. Probably mad at myself for being scared of something so silly, or maybe mad at myself because I don't want to feel frightened by anything. And even though I'm maybe mad at myself, sometimes that anger goes outwards instead. Sometimes I take it out on other things and other people because I don't know what to do with all that fear. Sometimes I just want to take the paper and tell it to do the thing I need it to do. Why do I have to work so hard? Why is this so frightening? Maybe if I just squeeze the words out of you, I'm so mad right now. Maybe just put a couple tears in it, right? Let it know exactly how I feel, see if it's gonna behave. And then when I push some of that anger out, I start to feel maybe just a little silly, right? And it's not the paper's fault. So maybe I need to do something to fix that. I'm gonna straighten it out a little bit here. But that's going to take some work, isn't it? This is not the same piece of paper that I started with before I got so frightened and so angry. If I put it on something flat and I just press on it really hard, no, the wrinkles are all still there, aren't they? Oh, and the tears. So maybe I could just tape those back together. There we go. almost good as new. That's a little better, right? It almost doesn't look that like I took out any kind of anger or emotion on this piece of paper, doesn't it? No. And this is the lesson for the day. Sometimes we get frightened. Sometimes we get angry. Sometimes we don't know what to do with ourselves, and we lash out at other people and other things. And, you know, I could tell the paper that I'm sorry. I do everything I can to try to smooth things over, and maybe even the paper and I will start getting along again, or the person. But it won't ever be the same. Sometimes the damage that we do with our words and our actions, it lingers and never really goes away. And that's our lesson for this morning, and your lesson for this morning. Hang on to that, it's going to come up. And you can head back to our intention table now if you like, or sit with your parents. I'm going to leave that up for a second because I didn't put in my opening slide, I remember. A couple of weekends ago, Jess and I went out to an early dinner at Pig and Fig down in White Rock, and then we were headed up to Smith's Marketplace to get a little bit of shopping done. And so we were driving on 4 towards 502 and get that little nice looping clover leaf that joins the roads together. And, you know, not long after that, the lanes merge down to one pretty quickly. So we got from 4 to 502, and as we pulled onto the ramp on 502, behind us was someone who had been coming 502 the whole way. And for some reason, they decided at the very last minute, as the merge was about to happen, that they were going to try to get out ahead of us. It was a little dicey there for a second. And of course, the road being what it was and the speeds we were driving at being what they were, the person did not make it, but they honked their horn and growled at us as they were right alongside and then braked because they realized they weren't going to get the pass done. A little bit of an adrenaline bump, right? Near miss there, and in the last couple of weeks, there have been a few accidents off on that side of the road. Thankfully, we were not one of them. However, this person who had tried to get out ahead of us at the last minute, maybe they were scared and angry, decided they were going to pursue us, I guess. You know, at that point in the road to Smith's is a good 10 minutes still of driving. And all along the way, this person was vacillating back and forth between riding our bumper really, really tightly, or dropping back a bit and aggressively flashing their bright lights at us, which is silly in the daylight. It just doesn't have the same effect at all. And by the end of the drive, as we were getting to the little roundabout, they were just on our tail. I thought, all right, we're almost where we're going. This will all be over soon. Maybe they're just going to pull off in a different direction, but they didn't. They stayed on our tail. And as we went into the lane to make our left turn into Smith's, they pulled behind us. And as we pulled into the parking lot, they stayed right behind us on our tail. And as we pulled into our parking space, they pulled right behind us, perpendicular, blocking our car in. And what had been slightly amusing for part of the drive up Airport Road all of a sudden was not quite so funny. That adrenaline pump really started ticking at that point. So Jess and I took a minute to just breathe. We gathered our shopping bags from the back seat. We got our masks situated. And we said, okay. And we got out of the car and decided we were just not going to acknowledge that this person was there. We got up on the little sidewalk there and walked straight into the store, and we went about our shopping, but we were jangled. We were buzzing all through that trip through the store. Do we call the cops? What's going on here? And by the time we finished, I was able to look out the window and see that this person has moved on finally, thankfully. But all Jess and I could think in that moment was, what if this person had a gun?
I don't want her to.
You ought to see Shane shoot now.
I did, Joey.
He's teaching me to shoot.
Yes, I know, dear. Now you run along, get ready for the party.
Oh, Mom.
Go on, Joey. Guns aren't going to be my boy's life.
Why do you always have to spoil everything? Bang! Bang!
A gun is a tool, Marion. No better, no worse than any other tool. An axe, a shovel, or anything. A gun is as good or as bad as the man using it.
I worked my way through college as a scenic carpenter in the theater department at Marquette while I was earning my major there, working alongside one of my best friends every afternoon, putting sets together and decorating them and making things happen. And our usual tools when we were building things were, you know, a pneumatic staple gun for knocking wood pieces together, making wooden flats, and then paint brushes, and the occasional screwdriver with a claw hammer. And one day, way in the back of the tool crib, as we were cleaning and organizing in there, my friend comes up with the most interesting hammer. Unlike anything we had ever seen before. It had the flat head of a normal hammer, but this interesting round head on the back, no claw at all, and we wondered what was up with that. And my friend was one for always setting himself up for a challenge. He decided this hammer was so fascinating, he was going to try to find a way to use it in every project for the week. And we learned quickly this hammer was not very useful for the work that we were doing. It was weighted just wrong to pound a nail in with the flat side of the head, and if you use the round side, it just glanced off nails and bent them and broke them, and we found ourselves not being as productive during the week because my friend was bound and determined to use this hammer for our set building. And by the end of the week, he finally concluded that this was a very stupid hammer, and why was it even in the tool crib of a carpentry shop? What was the point there? And our boss, noticing that my friend had been struggling with this stupid hammer all week, said, that's an auto body hammer, man. That's for pounding out sheet metal, making it straight, knocking dents out, making shapes that can be smooth and round. That's what it's for. You can't put wood together with it. It's not how you use it. Every tool has a designed purpose. A hammer is designed for pounding out sheet metal and other metals, or a claw hammer is a lever designed to give us a little extension to pound a nail into a board, perhaps. A screwdriver is another kind of simple lever that turns a fastener to fasten two things together securely. A knife, even, is a very specific kind of a wedge that can be used for everything from slicing sushi to splitting the Gordian knot. Sometimes it has some other deadlier purposes itself, but it has creative uses as well. And an automobile is a very complex machine for getting someone or something from point A to point B. Every tool has a purpose. And so does a gun. Shane is right. A gun is nominally just a tool. And what is the purpose of a gun? What was it designed to do? To launch a projectile very, very fast towards a target and then puncture it or tear it somehow, causing damage, often irreparable, frequently up to death. That is the function of a gun. It is a tool of destruction. Now, after tragedies with mass shootings or other gun violence, the question is often asked, what is the purpose of a gun? Why do we have them? And you'll hear people who are enthusiastic about owning their guns tell you that a gun is just a tool and it's, intended to be used for hunting, for survival, for home defense, for sport. But those aren't the uses so much as the desired outcomes of our intent with our chosen tool. See, it's intended for these good things. And when someone commits murder with it, it's being misused. guns don't kill people. People kill people. Which is not so much a defense of a gun as it is a confession on the part of the person who speaks it that they have run full force, face first, into the point and still managed to miss it. Yeah, it takes a person too. You might as well say shovels don't dig holes, people with shovels dig holes. No kidding. That's how tools work. A tool doesn't exist in a vacuum. The tool in and of itself, sure, is just an object, but the use of a tool is a process. It is a process of the function of the tool as it was designed for, and the intent of the person who picks it up, and the outcome that arises because of the meeting of that intent and that function. There is potential in the object and no final effect of it until somebody uses it. So yes, people kill people. Intent matters. But sometimes the function of the tool informs the intent more than what we might mean for it. If I put a hammer in my hand, you could reasonably assume that I'm gonna hammer some nails, right? Hang a picture maybe. And if I hold a screwdriver in my hand, you can reasonably assume something similar, that I'm gonna be putting up a coat hook on the wall, screwing together a frame for some kind of a project. If I hold an Allen wrench in my hand, you can reasonably assume I'm going to be swearing in an IKEA bookcase for the next 3 hours. If I put a knife in my hand, you could reasonably assume that I'm going to whittle myself a little something, start prepping for dinner. Although you could also reasonably assume, depending on what my face looks like in the moment, that I might have another intent with it. But more often than not, when I put these tools in my hand, I'm approaching it with some sort of creative intent. And what happens if I put a gun in my hand? The function of a gun is to cause harm, to do damage, sometimes irreparable, sometimes up to death. If I misuse a hammer and do harm with it, I've betrayed its function. If I misuse a screwdriver and cause harm with it, I have betrayed its intended function. If I put a gun in my hand and I use it, I can't ever really misuse it because it only has the one function. It only destroys. Assume, in this case, I'm the good guy, right? My intentions are good, I'm well trained, and I have a gun in my hand, but regardless of my intent or my training, the tool has the function of damage and death, and I cannot misuse it. There's only one function. Whether it's putting food on the table or there is a home invader on my floor, I have caused damage to someone or something. Someone or something has died. I might intend to create something with it, but the function of the tool will not let me do that. There is no creative purpose in a gun. That's why when you go to county fairs, you see chainsaw carving contests, not fully automatic rifle carving contests. Imagine the mess. When I put a gun in my hand, no matter what my intents are, you can reasonably assume that I'm going to commit violence or I am promising the commitment of violence. what else would anyone think? And this is all assuming that I'm the good guy, that my intentions are good and that I am well trained. The presence of the gun changes my relationship to the world no matter what I intend. And what if I was the bad guy? Because that's what we hear all the time, especially after tragedy, right? The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. If guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. You need a gun in your life to protect yourself from them. This is a struggle between the mentally ill and the mentally sound. If you've been listening to me preach long enough, I think you know how I feel about dualities in general. Human beings are far too complex. Human life is full of too many paradoxes for anything to be characterized in simple breakdowns of one versus the other. Good versus evil. Crazy versus sane. Worldviews that are based in false dichotomies are comforting. It takes a lot of pressure off us to try to, look at the world with nuance, but they are never, ever reflective of the reality of life that we are living in. Which is all to say, there is no such thing as a discrete category called bad guys. There is no such thing as a discrete category of people called criminals. And the realities of the possession of guns in the United States shines a light on the truth of that every day. Here's what we know about the realities of having guns in our homes. And this comes from an aggregation of scholarly articles that is kept by the Harvard School of Public Health in their Injury Control Research Center. Guns are not used millions of times a year in self-defense, despite what the lobbies might tell you. In fact, law-abiding citizens, however you want to define that, shoot criminals in commission of a crime less than 1% of the time a crime is being committed. Guns that are purchased for the purpose of self-defense, reported by their purchasers, are most often used to escalate an argument. They're more often used to intimidate someone else. And when a gun is in a home, more often they're used to intimidate an intimate partner or family member. In fact, in a domestic violence situation, the presence of a gun makes it 5 times more likely that the victim will die. 5 times. Access to guns in the home doubles the homicide rates in areas where they're allowed, triples the suicide rates. Most people convicted of a gun crime were not a criminal until they used the gun. There is no such thing as a discrete class of people called the bad guys. We all mean well, and usually it goes horribly wrong. Because we're human beings. We are fallible, we are imperfect, and every minute of every day, we are one bad day away from making an error we can't take back, from crumpling the paper. And the presence of a gun in that scenario just amplifies the error, the tragedy. Access to a tool of destruction amplifies the tragedy. And that's the crux, really, of my point today, is that the damage a gun causes, because that is its purpose, is not limited to the good guy or the bad guy in the situation. It's not limited to the victim and the perpetrator in that situation. The damage amplifies out into communities. Psychological damage to a whole neighborhood, the physical loss of the people who are part of the community, holes that can't be refilled. Financial loss because a breadwinner is not there in a family anymore. The mental health of an entire community is at risk. And the community can heal, certainly. It can recover from a tragedy, but it won't ever be the same. It can't go back to the way it was before. The paper is crumpled. The effects linger. It doesn't even take a shooting incident in a community to show that. Just the mere presence of guns in a community harms the sense of safety in a neighborhood. In another study from that Harvard list, people were polled to see how they would feel if they knew that their neighbor had a gun in their home. Would you feel safer knowing that, or would you feel less safe? And by a 3-to-1 margin, people said they would feel less safe knowing if their neighbor had a gun in their home. It wasn't so silly to feel nervous about our tailgater. Because here's the thing, we don't know. We don't know who has them, we just know people have them. Just the presence or the assumed presence of a gun in the community breaks apart the cohesion of the community, makes it harder to connect. And that's why I'm talking about this today. I'm not here to make any kind of a political statement today. I'm speaking up on behalf of the beloved community today. The thing we are called to build together as a congregation. And I'm not going to bang the drum today for the common sense gun legislation we all know that we need. I don't need to convince you of that this morning, I don't think. And I know I'm not going to change anybody's mind who might be listening right here or at home right now or watching the video of this service months down the road, however you feel about the subject. But I am called to lead us into building a beloved community. And I maintain that a tool of destruction cannot create anything but distrust and fear in a community. Guns should not be able to find such an easy home in a community. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, for my own part, I don't think guns have a place in the beloved community whatsoever. I don't know where you stand on any of this or where you stand. Here's what I do know. There are a lot of guns in Los Alamos County in homes. A lot of guns. I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. It is probably more than one gun per home on average. There are enough guns in our community to be a major roadblock to really having any sense of a connected community, of a community that is together with some sort of purpose. There are enough guns in Los Alamos County to frighten me by the fact of how close we are to joining the ranks of the statistics. Heck, we are already part of the statistics. If you look at the suicide rate here, I don't know if any of you are on board with me listening. Any of you are hearing me. I don't know where you stand. I don't know whether or not you have guns in your home right now, and I'm not here to make a judgment about that today. But if you're not working in law enforcement, if you are not on active duty in the military, if you are not a hunter or a skeet shooter or involved in some sort of sport, I'm asking you to just consider the purpose of a gun. What is the purpose of it? Consider the statistics and what they tell us about the risks. Consider if the benefits to your own person outweigh the risks to a household or a community. Consider, do I need this? I know I'm not going to change any minds today. I don't know where anyone stands. Maybe you'll consider what I've said today. And maybe somebody will still come back to say, after all this, yeah, a gun is just a tool. Great. Awesome. Build me a home with one. Build me a neighborhood. Build me a world worth living in. And then let's talk about that. Let's talk about what's going on good in the community right now. Pride Week is coming up here in Los Alamos County, and your church is involved in many of the functions. We've got a couple of events happening right here. First up, a short movie night, a movie of Pride, evening of Pride shorts will be happening here on the 11th. Starting at 6 o'clock. I know at some point we'll be having sex ed for LGBTQ people happening here as well. On June 17th, rounding out the week of Pride Week, we are having Pride Fest yet again in person this year out on the lawn area near Bosey Brothers there in the Central Plaza. We will have an information booth there with pamphlets and stickers and a glitter blessing for those of you who want to be blessed that day. We've already got a bunch of volunteers for that, but if you're interested in taking part in that as well, come and talk to me or talk to Tina to take part in that. I'd love to see as many faces showing up for Pride and this church's place in it that day. And then that Sunday, we will hold a Pride service here, Pride themed. The theme is all of who you are is sacred, and we'll close out the week with that service as well. We are lining up some guest speakers to work alongside me for that. And then just for fun, and because I can, it's the return of movie night at the church and a sermon after that. We'll be showing the movie Free Guy on the 25th of June, that Saturday. We'll start it at 7 p.m. If you haven't seen it, it's better than it has any right to be. I was expecting to just be entertained, and I've watched it like 3 times now. It's kind of brilliant. And then the next day, we'll be talking about the themes of free will that come about in that movie. So join us for that. Maybe there will be popcorn either. You know I can't live without that on a movie night. And now, as we prepare to return to our everyday lives, it is time to give something of the community we are part of to the larger community we belong to. It is time for our offering. During the month of June, all cash and undesignated funds that we collect and everything that we collect through our Givelify app that you select for that envelope will be given to our friends of the Juvenile Justice Advisory Board in support of their work with the youth of our community. Please drop your cash or check in the basket as it comes around today, or use our Givelify app. Remember to choose the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos as your recipient and click on JJAB to make sure your gift goes there, or you can leave it after the service in our collection box at the back of the room. The offering will now be accepted. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Community is grateful for the gifts that we give. May we in the giving find our own gratitude as well. Would you please now rise in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn number 6. Friends, may life bless us and keep us, the light of life shine upon us and out from within us, and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have all been given, so let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.